of the publishing of Jane Austen's first book in 1811, coincidentally also the start of the Regency period, and continues through each year until her passing in 1817. Jane frequently mentions her novels, or her children, in her personal letters, so today we bring these letters to life in a way that we think Jane would have liked. With quotes from these letters and novels, we also hear the headline news and gossip, and finally top off each year with a relevant themed choreography of dances. After all, in her day, Jane loved to dance, especially a cotillion and a country dance as you've seen here. Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, and Northanger Abbey were all started in the 1790s, but many years passed before Jane was finally happy for them to be published. Publishing, especially for a new, unknown, and female author, was risky and expensive, unless the publisher bought the copyright. Jane is indebted to her brother Henry, who after her father's death helped and paid for her novels to be published anonymously, as it wasn't really fitting for a genteel lady to do so. The world in the 1790s, when Jane started writing, was a far different place to the world of the Regency era of 1811 to 1820, when Jane was actually publishing. But in Jane, or Mr. Tilney of Northanger Abbey, in his words, the person, be it a gentleman or lady, who does not have pleasure in a good novel, must be intolerably stupid. Enjoy our performance today.
The year of Eleanor and Marianne, or Sense and Sensibility. In 1795, when Jane was just 20, she made a start on a book she called Eleanor and Marianne, and 2 years later, she renamed it Sense and Sensibility. Whilst writing it, Jane met an Irishman, Tom Lefroy, and in January 1796, we catch her updating her sister Cassandra about their flirtation.
My dear Jane, you must be more careful of your reputation.
You scold me so much that I'm almost afraid to tell you how my Irish friend and I behaved. But imagine to yourself everything most profligate and shocking in the way of dancing and sitting down together.
We can only imagine James remembering this when Marianne and her Willoughby do the same in Sense and Sensibility.
began. If dancing formed the amusement of the evening, Marianne and Willoughby were partners for half the time. And when obliged to separate for a couple of dances, were careful to stand together and scarcely spoke a word to anyone else. Such conduct made them, of course, most exceedingly laughed at.
After Jane's father's abrupt death in 1805, she picked the book up again and reworked it, and by 1811 it was finally ready for publication. We join an excited Jane as she writes to her sister Cassandra.
I am never too busy to think of Sense and Sensibility. I can no more forget it than a mother can forget her suckling child. Henry has hurried the printer, as I haven't had only 2 sheets to correct, which just takes us up to Willoughby's first appearance.
May I be of service, madam?
How does my uncle, but I am sure I shall manage.
You must allow me to carry you home.
As Jane was an unknown author, the Austens had to pay for the printing and advertising as cheaply as possible, whilst the publisher, Egerton, distributed for a commission. At the end of October 1811, with Jane now aged 36, and 16 years after it was started, around 750 Sense and Sensibility novels by a lady hit the shelves at a price of 15 shillings.
And now, the news of 1811. George III has reluctantly been declared insane, and the unpopular Prince of Wales is to rule as regent. He will celebrate by hosting yet another elaborate and expensive feast. Wellington has finally held off the French in the Peninsular War, and Napoleon's troops are beginning to retreat from Portugal. Returning troops are bringing a scandalous new dance known as couple waltzing back to England. The author of the new book, The Mirror of Graces, is recommending that none but husbands and wives can, with any propriety, be partners in the waltz. And finally, La Belle Assemblée magazine reports from Sittingbourne on an extraordinary event. A woman, with her 5 children, a horse and cart, and all her household furniture has been sold at auction to the highest bidder.
Our performance for 1811 reflects the waltz's colourful passage during the Regency across Europe to acceptance post-Waterloo and beyond. From the socially acceptable country dance set to waltz music, as mentioned in Emma, to the scandalous couple waltzing, twirling in a closed-hold embrace and beyond.
My dear brother Frank, you'll be glad to hear that every copy of Sense and Sensibility is sold, and that it has brought me £140, besides the copyright, if that should ever be of any value.
In the meantime, another of her books, Her Own Darling Child, was being finished in 1812 for publication in 1813.
1812 and 1813, the years of first impressions, or prime impressions. In October 1796, Jane, aged 21, made a start on a second book entitled First Impressions. It was finished and ready for publication just 9 months later. Look, there's her father, writing to a publisher.
Dear Mr. Cadell, I have in my possession a novel in 3 volumes. A work of this sort should make its first appearance under a respectable name. So I apply to you. What will be the expense of publishing at the author's risk? Alternatively, would you pay for copyright? Should your answer give me encouragement, I will send you the work. Your humble servant, George Austen, November 1797.
Unfortunately, the publisher did not share the enthusiasm, and it was declined by return of post, unseen. Jane doesn't seem too upset by this, and we join her in 1799, sharing a joke with her sister.
I will not let our friend Martha read First Impressions again on any account. She is very cunning, but I know her design. She needs to publish it herself from memory. And one more reading might enable her to do it.
After the publication of her first book, Jane reopened the lengthy First Impressions and locked and cropped it radically into Pride and Prejudice. In November 1812, her publisher, Everton, bought the copyright. He must have seen something special in it to do so, and this saved the Austens the expense of producing it themselves.
Egerton gives £110 for it. I would rather have had £150, but we could not both be pleased. And I'm not at all surprised that he should not choose the hazard so much. Its being sold will, I hope, be a great saving of trouble to Henry, and therefore must be welcome to me. The money is to be paid at the end of the 12th month.
Our 1812 performance pays tribute to the famous dancing quote in Pride and Prejudice, with Mr. Darcy declaring that every savage can dance. Inspiration for this quote likely came from the 1781 Robinson Crusoe canto, as the music and dance instructions for the savage dance were found on a scrap of paper written in Jane Austen's own hand.
the author of Sense and Sensibility, at a price of 18 shillings.
My dear Cassandra, I want to tell you that I bought a printed copy of my own darling child from London, and the advertisements are out in the paper today. I must confess that I think that this book has delightful creatures ever appeared in print, and how I should be able to tolerate those who do not like her, I do not know. I think perhaps the book is rather too light and bright and sparkling. It wants shade, it wants to be stretched out here and there with a long chapter of sense about the history of Bonaparte or anything that would form a contrast and bring the reader and increase the light back to the faithfulness. Henry and I went to an art exhibition. I was very well pleased with a small portrait of Mrs. Jane Bingley. Excessively like her. Size, shape, face, features, and sweetness. There never was a greater likeness. She's dressed in a white gown with green ornaments, which convinces me of what I had always supposed. The green was a favourite colour with her. I actually hoped to see a portrait of her sister, Mrs. Lizzie Darcy, who I dare say would be a good yellow. But I was disappointed, for there was nothing like her. I can only imagine that her new husband, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, prizes any picture of her too much to like it to be exposed to the public eye. Yours very affectionately, Jane. London, 1813.
And now, the news of 1812 and 1813. France's successful invasion of Russia has proved short-lived, as the Russians set fire to buildings and crops, forcing the French to retreat, with massive loss of life to the Russian winter. Spain is declared free of Napoleon, and the Allied forces are beginning to close in on a tired and depleted French army. Prime Minister Spencer Perceval has been shot dead in the House of Commons. A suspect with a grudge is under arrest and is being questioned. And finally, our royal correspondent reports of a significant to-do at last night's masquerade ball, where Beau Brummel, former friend of the overweight Prince Regent, and renowned for the popularisation of trousers, attended with Lord Alvanley. The Prince Regent greeted Alvanley, but snubbed Beau Brummel. Brummel is then reported as saying loudly,
Alvin, who's your fat friend?
a sure way of committing social suicide.
Our 1813 performance pays tribute to the 200-year anniversaries of the publishing of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice in 1813, with dances from TV productions of her novels, including another Lizzie and Darcy dance.
To end our visit to 1812 and 1813, we are pleased to hear that Pride and Prejudice sold out within 9 months, making money for Egerton, who subsequently published second and third editions. But Jane received nothing further than the original £110, except fame, as her brother Henry has accidentally let slip her identity.
My dearest brother Frank, Henry heard Pride and Prejudice warmly praised in Scotland, and what does he do in the warmth of his brotherly love but immediately tell everyone who wrote it? One knows how it spreads, so whenever my third book appears, I shall try to get all the money or all the mischief I can of it. I've now written myself into £250, 110 from the copyright of Pride and Prejudice, and £140 from Policy Sense and Credibility. Could you use long for more? I have a new novel in hand, which I hope, on the credit of Pride and Prejudice, will sell well, though it's not half so entertaining. Yours very affectionately, Jane.
And that third novel was Mansfield Park.
The year of Mansfield Park. In 1798, a newly published play called Lover's Vows was squirreled away by Jane Austen for inclusion in her third book, Mansfield Park, started fully in 1811, finished within 2 years, and eventually printed in May 1814, with the Austens back to paying the costs of production rather than sell the copyright. The price set for the book by the author of Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice was 18 shillings, with about 1,250 printed. Jane relates in a letter to her sister Cassandra her recent conversation about Mansfield Park with their brother Henry, who is proofreading it for her.
And do you approve of it?
Yes, it is very different from your other 2 novels, but not inferior.
But you've only got to when Maria Bertram and Mr. Rushworth had married, after dancing with each other at a proper number of balls, so I'm afraid you've got through the most interesting part.
But I like Fanny, and I admire Henry Crawford as a clever, pleasant man. Above all, I defy anybody to say whether he will be reformed or will forget Fanny in a fortnight.
Jane found time to read as well as write, and admired such authors as Fanny Burney and Sir Walter Scott. In 1814, Jane wrote,
I finished The Heroine by Barrett last night and was very much amused by it.
Perhaps Jane enjoyed reading the part where the heroine has dressed herself like a green statue, using a piece of fabric wrapped around herself and secured in place, and has gone to a masquerade ball where couple waltzing is introduced.
Round and round we flew, and swifter and swifter, till my head grew quite giddy. And in the midst of my rotation, more than half my dress dropped at my feet. I shrieked, sank on the floor, amidst the wreck of my drapery, while the ladies ran and arranged themselves around me to hide my half-revealed charms.
And now, the breaking news of 1814, brought to you from Hyde Park in London. Peace in Europe is declared with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. France has surrendered, ending Napoleonic wars, and Napoleon is safely exiled to Elba. We have come onto the crowded streets of London to experience the summer of celebrations for both peace in Europe, but also to mark the 100-year jubilee
same as my sister Jane advised me in her letter. Take care of yourself and do not be trampled to death in running after the Emperor of Russia.
Ah, yes. The extremely handsome Russian Tsar is certainly a hit with the ladies. No expense has been spared for the celebrations. 12,000 troops are parading in Hyde Park today and will reenact the triumphant Battle of Trafalgar with French ships sunk to our national anthem. And later tonight, William Cavendish, Duke of Devonshire, will host a lavish ball. But news is just coming in. The seven-story Chinese pagoda, erected in St. James's Park for the Jubilee celebrations, has caught fire and burned down. The crowd had wilted, thinking it was planned. A number of the royal swans have died.
Our performance today acknowledges the centenary Jubilee fete, marking 100 years of Georgian rule, and also triumph over Napoleon in Europe, with aptly named celebratory dances.
brother Henry and their new prestigious publisher, Murray, were underway in London in October 1815.
Mr. Murray, the terms you offer are so very inferior to what we had expected. The sum offered by you for the copyright of Sense and Sensibility, Mansfield Park and Emma, is not equal to the money which my sister has actually cleared for a very moderate edition of Mansfield Park, and an even smaller one of Sense and Sensibility.
My dear Cassandra, Mr. Murray is a rogue, of course, but a simple one. He offers only £450 for Emma, but wants to have the copyright of Mansfield Park and Sense and Sensibility included as well. It will end in me publishing for myself, I dare say. Yours affectionately, Jane.
And it did. The Austens published Emma themselves, along with the second edition of Mansfield Park, with Murray taking a percentage of sales. But when Jane's brother Henry was suddenly taken ill, our tale takes a twist. Henry was attended by the royal physician, who felt obliged to tell the Prince Regent, a great admirer of her novels, that Miss Austen was in London. So, on November 13th, 1815, Jane Austen visited the library at Carlton House. Although she never met the Prince Regent, probably for the best, as she hated him, but still used him to hurry the princess.
Mr. Murray, is it likely that the Prince will be influenced to a greater dispatch and punctuality by knowing that the work is to be dedicated by permission to the Prince Regent?
It must have worked, because just before Christmas, 1815, but dated 1860, a massive 2,000 high-quality Emma novels were published at a price of 21 shillings each, a fitting tribute to the 40-year-old author of Pride and Prejudice. Although Jane is
strongly haunted with the idea that to those readers who preferred Pride and Prejudice, Emma will appear inferior in wit, and to those who preferred Mansfield Park, that Emma will appear inferior in sense.
And now, the news of 1815. The peace celebrations of 1814 are officially declared premature, as the little Corsican Napoleon, who escaped from Elba in February, continues to rally troops and march towards Paris. Our on-the-spot correspondent in Belgium reports that the Duchess of Richmond's ball went ahead on June 15th, as planned, but the dancing was interrupted by Wellington's shocked exclamation.
Napoleon has humbled me. He has gained 24 hours march of me. I must fight him here at Waterloo.
And some breaking news just in. The Prince Regent has heard from Wellington, who writes,
Victory, sir, victory! Peace in Europe is re-established after 100 days of war. Napoleon is defeated at the Battle of Waterloo on the 18th of June. Napoleon is exiled again to the faraway island of St. Helena.
History has not bequeathed us the actual dances from the ball held on 15th of June 1815, although we do know the Scottish reels were performed. So we have chosen 3 dances which we feel should have been included and reflect the splendour of the ball before the bloodbath of the battle.
designer. I'm sure you will like to see my Emma, and have therefore great pleasure in sending it to you for your perusal. Keep it as long as you choose. It's been read by all here. Yours affectionately, Aunt Jane.
Nearly 3/4 of the 2,000 Emma books sold in the first year, but the publishing costs were higher, and sales of the second edition of Mansfield Park were poor and would make a loss. So Jane would only receive a combined total of just £38. But, never mind, as Jane has already started her next book, Persuasion.
(1816 and 1817), the years of the Elliots, or Persuasion, and Susan, or Catherine, or Northanger Abbey. Persuasion and Northanger Abbey have always been linked, as they were worked on during 1816 and 17, and then published together after Jane's death in 1817. They also have extensive scenes set in Bath, although Bath is actually mentioned in all of her books, with Northanger Abbey reflecting Jane's experience of visiting Bath for a season in 1798, and Persuasion reflecting Jane's experience of living in Bath from 1801 to 1806. So let's look at the Elliots, or Persuasion, first. Jane Austen was already working on the Elliots whilst arranging Emma's publication. She started it in August 1815, finished it under a year later in 1816, but kept it secret from her brother Henry until yet another year has passed.
My dear niece Annie, do not be surprised at finding Uncle Henry acquainted with my having another novel ready for publication. I could not say no when he asked me, but he knows nothing more than that. You will not like the Elliots, so you need not be too impatient. You may perhaps like the heroine Anne, but she is almost too good for me. Pictures of perfection, as you know, make me sick and wicked. Yours affectionately, Aunt Jane, March 1817.
So we can speculate why the finished novel was kept a secret and not published straight away.
Maybe it's because your Emma was published only 8 months ago, and you haven't received any profits yet.
Surely not.
Maybe it's because Henry lost £20,000 when his bank failed in March. And maybe you decided it's not the best time to offer his help again.
I know. It's because you're busy reworking your other Bath Facebook, isn't it?
Or maybe it's because you've been feeling unwell recently.
Maybe they should all give up guessing, as I don't think Jane's going to tell us. The Elliots is littered with so many comparisons between the character Anne Elliots and Jane's real-life experience of Bath, such as Jane describes the first view of Bath
as vapour, shadow, smoke and confusion.
and Anne Elliot
As the dim view of extensive buildings smoking in the rain.
but we have to leave both of them.
At another intolerably small, stupid part.
Forced into constant exertion to talk nonsense to each other.
As we don't have time for more, it's over to the news desk.
And now, the news of 1816. The Times newspaper reports. It's official. 1816 has been declared as a Europe-wide year without a summer, with severely cold temperatures and incessant rain. It is believed that the massive eruption of the Tambora volcano in the East Indies last year is responsible. The government has warned to expect the extensive crop failure to result in more food shortages and price rises, full welcome home to our brave Waterloo veterans, who, we understand, will only receive £2.11 for their war efforts, compared with Wellington's £61,000.
Thomas Wilson, dancing master at the King's Theatre, Opera House, 200 years ago, was a prolific writer of dancing manuals during the Regency era. In 1816, 3 Thomas Wilson books were published. We take inspiration from them, and as did one reviewer who was almost tempted, in spite of rheumatism, to throw aside his flannels and buy a
to end our visit to 1816, and whilst waiting for the right time to ask Henry to publish Persuasion, Jane spent £10 buying back and then reworking one of her early books into Northanger Abbey. That's a long story, spanning 1798 to 1817. So now let's look at Susan, or Catherine, or Northanger Abbey. Our Northanger Abbey Gothic tale begins around 1798, after Jane visited Bath to enjoy the luxuries and entertainments it provided. The resulting book was Susan. Jane's enjoyment of visiting and dancing here at the Bath Assembly Rooms is reflected by her character Susan's enjoyment.
I shall always be talking of Bath. I do like it so very much. On Sunday, we visit the pump rooms and walk the Royal Crescent. On Monday, we dance at the Upper Assembly Rooms. On Tuesday, we watch a play at the theatre. On Wednesday, a concert. On Thursday, more dancing in the Lower Assembly Rooms. Oh, who can ever be tired of Bath?
In 1803, and now actually living in Bath, Jane revised and sold the copyright for just £10 to Mr. Seymour, a Bath bookseller, and expected it to be published soon thereafter. So Susan, or Northanger Abbey, was the first book she ever sold. But years passed, and in 1809, Jane is about to move to Chawton and writes under a false name to the London publisher who had purchased Susan from Mr. Seymour.
Mr. Crosby, in the spring of 1803, a novel in 2 volumes entitled Susan was sold on to you. 6 years have since passed, and this work, which I avow myself the authoress, has never appeared in print, though early publication was stipulated at the time. I can only account for this by supposing that the manuscript has been lost. I am willing to supply you with another copy if you will engage in no further delay. Else I shall find myself at liberty to secure publication of my work by applying elsewhere.
Madam, it is true that we purchased a manuscript novel entitled Susan and paid the sum of £10, but there was not any time stipulated for its publication. Neither are we bound to publish it. Should you or anyone else do so, we shall take proceedings to stop the sale. The manuscript shall be yours for the same fee as we paid for it.
It was not until 1816 that Jane Austen paid Crosby the £10 and bought Susan back without him knowing of her failure. She renamed Susan to Catherine and began to revise it, but she is never fully happy with it, and in 1817 writes to her niece Fanny.
Miss Catherine is put on the shelf for the present. I do not know if she will ever come out again. But I have something else ready for publication. It's called The Elliots, which may perhaps appear in a 12th month.
We don't know the reasons Jane is unhappy with it, but Henry and Cassandra try to console her.
You wrote it so long ago that it's bound to seem a little out of date.
It's impossible to reignite the excitement now that we felt then at visiting Bath for the first time.
Anyway, I prefer your never long-suffering heroine and persuasion.
You haven't been feeling yourself. Jane, you must rest.
Whatever the reason, it made Northanger Abbey into the first novel to be finished and sold, but the last to be published.
And now, the news of 1817. Breaking news. Serious attack on the Prince Regent. On his way to open Parliament, the Prince Regent's carriage has been mobbed and the coach window shattered. It's thought his 127-course banquet for the Tsar of Russia, whilst Waterloo veteran starve, and his unpopularity prompted the attack. In other news, after 10 weeks of duping the gentry residents of a village near Bristol, the Princess of Caribou has been uncovered as a fraud. A simple Mary Wilcox, a cobbler's daughter. A book of her adventures entitled "The World Wants to be Deceived, so Let It Be Deceived" is to be published. Price, 5 shillings. And finally, Princess Charlotte, the Prince Regent's sole heir, has died in childbirth, leaving no heir to the throne after the Prince Regent. This follows on from the sad news that Jane Austen, authoress, died on the 18th of July, 1817, in Winchester, Hampshire. Her sister Cassandra will inherit the rights to all her novels, except Pride and Prejudice.
We pay tribute to the beginning of Jane Austen, as resurrecting herself, by including her dance from 1775, and the end of Jane Austen by including dances from 1817, which includes some of the new dance styles of the era, such as the quadrille imported from France post-Waterloo.
Persuasion and Northanger Abbey were posthumously published together as a set of 4 volumes priced 24 shillings in December 1817 that dated 1880. Henry wrote a foreword, and at last we see Jane Austen's name in print. And with such different views of Bath, the novels have been inseparable ever since.
It is interesting to note that Jane Austen only made about 650 from her books between 1811 and 1817. There they are now. Thank you, James. Their father's annual income, and their pittance, when compared with Mr. Collins, his quote for Pride and Prejudice.
Lady Catherine de Bourgh's chimney place alone cost £800.
Cassandra Austen did better than nothing and made about £1,000 between 1817 and 1832, and she spent it on a beautiful necklace and earbox. After which, all the copyrights were sold to a publisher, Bentley, as interest in Jane Austen had waned. But Egerton, the publisher who bought Pride and Prejudice, got the best deal. It's fitting that we end today by letting our James have the final word from 1817.
I have just received nearly £20 for the sale of the second edition of Sense and Sensibility.
Which gives me a fine flow of literary ardour.
But sadly, just a week later, Jane stopped work on her new novel, Sanditon, due to ill health, with the words,
Begun 17th of January, 1817.
Put down 18th March, 1817. Yours affectionately, Jane.
the end.